Welcome! We are the Labyrinth Arts and Performance Collective. I'm your host, Miss Alley Cat, on Radio Theater Deep Dive, where each month we explore a new radio play. This season's theme is noir, the dark, the twisted, and the transgressive. Here, authors push the boundaries of the noir tropes and styles. After the play, the creators and guests unravel the genre as we dissect the work. Today's featured play is The Temp That Killed CEO Jerry Landis, an office noir based on current and possible events.
At 7:55 on a Tuesday morning, Trev leaned against the fake plywood walls of the elevator with his right arm locked at the elbow on the waist-high handrail. It braced his body up as he rested his eyes, riding up to floor 12.
Okay, buddy. You figure you have at least 2 minutes on the waiting room couch to wake up until what's-her-name for the day comes out to get you. Got it? Get it.
Charlie, the office manager, stood waiting for him at the entrance on the balls of her feet, eager to work, wearing a formal gray blazer, matching skirt, and NYX purple blaze eyeliner. She stood between Trev and the front desk. Trev saw through the sliding partition, over the surface edge, the headrest of the swivel chair peeking up at him.
Hey, you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Damn it.
Trev's arm pushed him upright in a standing position. He breathed in, balanced himself, widened his eyes, and let his legs walk him out.
Looks like someone here came in ready to work.
Good morning. You must be Charlie D'Angelo from the emails. You
must be Trevor Scoopian from the Klausner Group.
I guess I must be.
I'm Charlie, the office manager and the queen of everything you see and hear. Welcome to today. You, Mr. Sir, have gotten famous around here for your glowing references, spotless background check, and a drug test as pure as God's first falling snowflake.
That can't be true, Trev thought to himself, still buzzed for the morning.
You might want to take off your tie.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I was just trying to look professional.
Yeah, but you don't want to look like you're in charge.
Trev unclipped his tie and pocketed it.
Follow me right through here.
She led him through a square white archway and 2 glass pivot doors out into the office floor.
How are you this morning? Did you find the place okay? I hope it wasn't too hard, because sometimes...
Trev kept up his pace as Charlie weaved them through the grid of cubicles and the Iron Mountain boxes bricked up against their walls, some at an ankle twisting 2 feet. Gaps where partition panels allowed for support columns were crammed with even more desks.
What else did the temp agency tell you about me?
Nothing but good things, so we expect great things. I don't know how much they said about us, but consider yourself part of the Lion Lock family, or as management would like to call us, the Lion's Den. No one calls it that, but still. Don't worry what you do and don't know.
The further past the Greek row of jocks he would have hated in college, the more relieved he was. Most of them smirked to each other at their desks, sitting in the chairs of who hadn't bothered to come in today. The short platitudes his ears caught confirmed any conversation would have zero listening, waiting for their turn to talk. 4 of them played waste paper basketball, arguing where on the floor to put the 3-point pencil. The rest craned their necks down into their phones. None of them pretended to work. No one looked Trevor in the eye.
I'm seeing a lot of people vaping.
Yeah, no one cares. That there is the break room. Over there is the staircase in case of a fire. You can see signs where the bathrooms are.
They walked past another bank of 5 elevators. Charlie pointed to the center one.
These are what will get you up the rest of the building to the top floor, floor 36. But to get to the very top, 36M, you want the center elevator.
Okay, cool.
Charlie finished touring Trev around and took him back to the front desk. She pulled the swivel chair out and turned the seat toward him.
We're keeping things easy breezy for you today. All you have to do is just buzz people in through the door, sign for packages, and look like your pretty self. Other than that, relax, hang out, don't overcomplicate it. Any questions?
No.
My extension is on that post-it right there. You can also IM me on your computer, even if the dot is red for busy. Also, this is for you.
Charlie pulled out of her pocket a flash drive and tossed it to Trev. He caught it and saw that it was encased in eraser rubber, shaped like their logo, a lion with yellow fur and a brown mane. Printed on the back was the name Lion Lock, as well as their website and social media handles. She left. He slumped into the swivel chair. Trev needed to take a moment and stare up into the fluorescence, letting the light shoot into his eyes. He wanted to cauterize his soul with the sterile energy of the building, to grow callous to this place for today.
You got this. 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 Just sit, smile, and don't make waves. After lunch, you only have 4 more hours to go till 5, and that's just 2 hours to work through twice.
Trev wanted to punch through every wall until the building collapsed. Lion Lock had too much money and not enough people. The company itself was worth just over $25 billion, with 77,500 employees around the world. Over a third of them in the building right now. If their shareholders agreed to divide even just a third of that among the employees, each person would get over $100,000. It's what they've earned and should be paid. Trev pictured how far he could get into this company's server, cybersecurity firm or not. He'd been part of the Pavement Group, an underground resistance movement of hackers trying to expose the fraudulent, if not criminal, practices of the largest transnational corporations in the world. 1 year before, Trev and 30 other hackers all at once tried to obtain and release the banking information for Carla Drabeck. She was the chief operations officer of Clawwitter Chicken, the largest distributor of chicken in the Midwest. Workers must make the quota of 1 chicken fully plucked every 5 seconds, counting bathroom trips. He bought a brand new laptop with none of his own data on it to trace just for the event. He set it up in his closet, which he wallpapered in tinfoil with his chair jetting out into his apartment hallway. He slept the entire day before to be alert at 1:30 a.m. He'd already downed a 2-liter of Mountain Dew, with a new one started. But as it got closer to the start time, Trevor's fingers twitched. He couldn't tell if it was the caffeine or nerves, but he needed to calm down. Fortunately, he still had some whiskey left over from the night before, and 6 milligrams of heroin. The idea was to get his mind into a zone between the stimulants and the downers, making him a being of pure skill and instinct. Once the clock hit, he was ready. He logged in, never having felt so alive. The rush of danger filled his veins. Then the next thing Trev remembered was waking up to a knock on his door and a dark screen on his laptop. His pants were soaked in the piss from the 1.5 liters. He opened it up to 2 cops with 3 more waiting for him downstairs. Trev had not only passed out during the hacking operation, he left a message on their server. "You need me," signed with his handle, the Trevor Lever. The FBI found him quite easily.
Right now, you just need a good rating for the temp agency to show Margaret at our next meeting. They want to see hustle and drive and initiative. You know what you should do? You should come up with a good idea while you're here, like a way to improve things. There's every chance they've already came up with the exact same set idea and you just don't know it. But at least they'll see you're trying. That's a start. They'll be impressed by that.
Trev leaned forward. He took a tiny pink 1/2-inch by 2 post-it note and placed it over the clock at the bottom right of his screen. This way he couldn't go insane checking the time over and over.
Just don't even think about it.
The elevator opened up, and 2 delivery drivers from Bobiak's Ukrainian kitchen entered with a lunch order. They placed it on the counter, pulling out a white clamshell wrapped in plastic and a 16-ounce foam container.
Wouldn't think it'd take 2 of you to deliver all this. Who should it go to?
We're here to see Jerry.
Great. Let me see what I can do.
Trev started looking up any Jerrys in the system. The amount of food in the container strained the foam latches. He felt both drivers' eyes on him.
Do you want me to just take that to him?
We can do it.
You don't need to give us a hand.
Okay, let me try emailing him.
Trev looked up an email address that said office.main@lionlock.com, then typed out in a fury, "Hi, Charlie, I have 2 delivery folks here for food for someone named Jerry. They're from Babiak's Ukrainian kitchen."
You can, I don't know, have a seat over there, I guess, if you'd like. Hold on.
Trev looked at his screen as automatic out-of-office messages filled the inbox. He had emailed the entire office.
Shit. Excuse me for one moment, y'all.
He picked the receiver up and pushed the button for line 1, but that put line 1 on hold.
Shit. Hold on. One moment, guys. I just need to call this person back. Come on, pick up. Damn it.
We're sorry. The
Sorry about
mailbox
that.
has not been set up yet. Goodbye.
Sorry. Hello, Lionlock. How can I help you?
Charlie was on the other end.
What is the total price of the food?
Sorry, what?
What is the total price of the food they're dropping off?
$86. Wow, that is expensive.
Stay on the line, listen to my voice, and act natural.
Trev pressed the phone to his ear, staring in silence at the 2 drivers.
Now that they've arrived, it's time for your first project. Your next job is to kill our boss.
What?
His name is Jerry Landis, with a net worth of over $150 billion. If you succeed, you will be paid $200,000 that the department collected in order to have him killed.
Yes.
Trev looked up at the corner of the room and saw the shaded dome covering the camera trained on him. So did the drivers.
Stay quiet. If you refuse, we will release the actual results of your drug test to your Temp agency, who would then report them to your parole officer.
Is there a problem?
Trev shook his head and kept listening.
Here's what you need to do. The last Friday of every month between noon and 1, our CEO has a meeting with leaders within the conglomerate that they call Beer Time. It's his meeting with the rest of an international cartel of which Lionlock has been laundering money for since the 80s. Today it's scheduled outside of the balcony of his office.
Awesome.
Once there, you need to walk out onto the balcony. He'll insist on shaking your hand. That's where you'll poison him with a push pin.
Eugene, a man in his late 70s in charge of the supplies, wheeled in a gray plastic cart. Pulled out a clear plastic box of yellow push pins. In the center, a lone red one. Keeping his head down, he put the red one on the table, then pushed the cart back through the door. He made sure the lock made a click.
Hold the red push pin in between the notch of your index and middle finger. When Jerry shakes your hand, the pin will inject a dose of ephedrine into the system. Don't worry. He'll pretend he's all manly and doesn't feel anything. Then tell him this was ordered for you and hand him the food those 2 gave you.
Trevor started to fumble with the food, trying to multitask.
The ephedrine will cause his heart to accelerate and he'll think this is why. Tell him he needs to use what's in the package to transfer access to a Central American bank account. After that, tell him his only option left is to climb over the rail of the balcony and jump off. You'll have no other choice between the cartel and the FBI. Once it's done, the custodian will arrive with a trash cart for you to hide in. He'll roll you to the service elevator and take you down to the loading dock, where you'll slip out without notice. I'll be waiting for you at the Starbucks across the street from the east end of the alley with your money. If you're in, Change your status on your monitor to green for available.
Trev clicked his mouse over his status and changed his dot to green.
This is gonna be so sweet.
We need to give these to Jerry.
Trev thumbed a hole through the plastic and ripped it open to free the styrofoam clamshell.
Why is this lukewarm?
Since we can't risk you being seen in an elevator or on camera, so at 12:20 when you see your fluorescent lights flash, that's your signal. Our security contact shut off security in the north stairwell for 10 minutes. His office doesn't have any installed.
Trev held the order in both hands.
What should I tell these two?
Just don't open the food.
Trev opened the shell and looked inside. He stepped back onto the leg of the swivel chair and fell backwards, spilling all over his shirt and pants the sticky blood-red and pink insides of a former human being. They splashed against his face on the blue-gray carpet. On his face rested a severed hand, wearing a smartwatch on its wrist, clutching a platinum credit card. It beeped a notification.
Welcome to the Police Tracker Act. Your authorities on the authorities.
The deliverers pulled out their guns.
Can you come around here, please?
I think I'm good.
Stay where you are.
Let us in.
Trev sat up, reached, and slid the door to the desk window closed, knocking their hand to the side. They blew the door handle, shooting right through it. Trev pushed open the door and saw Eugene's body on the floor, blocking it, having been in a line of fire peering through the window. Trev tripped over it and stumbled to his feet with a hand in the container. He looked back at the assassins trying to get in without making even more noise. They ran to find another way. Trev looked across the acres of desks that covered the entire floor. On the other side, easily 130 feet away, was the red glow of an exit sign pointing out. Going around either side was too long.
The fastest way from one point to the next.
Trev carried the hand across the floor, covered in blood and guts. He fought every urge to run, forcing himself to speed walk as fast as he could, pretending he was inconspicuous.
Just pretend this looks completely normal. It's like a Bavarian fire drill.
More and more employees looked up as he walked by, alerted by the shots fired. Trev saw security guards and a guy pointing them towards him. The scanner went off.
Area units, please respond to shots fired at the Lion Lawn building. Area units, please respond to shots fired at the Lion Lawn building.
Fuck!
Trev banked right, running deeper into the cubes. Trev picked up the pace as he looked back and saw more running, faster to intercept him. They kept him from seeing the lady who stuck out her ankle and tripped him. The box fell out of his arms. The bloody hand rolled out. He tried to reach for it, but a coworker stepped on his bicep.
Ow!
The other employees picked Trev up by his arms and legs, writhed his body trying to wrestle out of the mob. They carried his body to a rolling table and landed him on it, grabbing the packaging tape to tie down his limbs.
Keep this hand free.
Two of them wheeled over the industrial paper shredder.
Roll him over here. This thing's strong enough to shred a bowling ball.
They grabbed his right hand and stretched out his arm.
What the fuck? Get off me!
One lowered his head to Trev's ear.
You messed up, buddy. And someone needs to go down for it.
Who?
It's either you taking the fall, or they're coming for all of us.
The employees rolled Trev to the shredder and folded his fingers flat so he couldn't ball them with a fist.
Stop!
The fire alarm blared across the floor, flashing strobes into their eyes. Activated sprinklers soaked them into composure. They let go of Trev's hand. Everyone looked over at the red pole station. Charlie stood in the cross-section of desks, holding a black umbrella under the water.
Everyone, go back to your desk.
Trev slipped his arm out of their grip, trying to let the water soak into his packaging restraints. He flipped the table over while still tied on it.
Let's you and me go into the conference room.
Charlie walked past Trev as he got up, put the hand back into the box, and followed her into a long conference room on the side of the building's floor, partitioned by glass. She sat down at the head of the table that was nearly as long. Trev remained standing.
You had one job. We tried to keep it simple and keep you out of the loop, but you had to get involved.
I didn't know I wasn't supposed to open it.
You're never supposed to open it. It's for someone else. The reason we hired you was because you don't know anyone. Nothing ties you to anything here. We didn't even process your paperwork to keep this in the dark.
Why are you trying to make this Jerry person commit suicide? Just have him killed.
More units are requested at the Lion Lock building. I repeat, more units are needed at the
Company
Lion
is
Lock
just
building.
a cover for the cartel of which Jerry has been skimming off of for years. He needs to take the fall so they don't start coming for the rest of us.
So is the severed hand with the card in it?
Access to the hundreds of millions of dollars this company is hiding.
Meaning it belongs to...
Our CFO.
Where are the two guys from out front?
Still waiting for us to give them a flash drive full of routing numbers to get the money. You have a job to finish.
Okay, but I still have, one more.
Hold on. You still look like shit. Through that door is the CFO's office. Grab a change of clothes.
Trev walked to the door over Charlie's shoulder. He entered the office of the dead CFO. Decorations included diplomas, a few awards, pictures of his family, now fatherless, and 6 White Sox pendants.
There's suits in the closet. Grab one that'll make you look smart.
Trev slid open the light blue closet door and found hanging 4 medium gray suit jackets. The sleeves were too short. He found a mirror and tried to make himself look somewhat presentable. He clipped his tie back on.
Come on, let's go.
They walked out the room and back across the office floor, Trev holding the boxed hand out front. Employees continued to clean up and dry off their equipment, side-eyeing Trev as he passed. The two of them got to the bank of elevators. Charlie kept pushing the up button, hoping the next one would be the middle one. Trev looked around, very exposed. The middle one finally opened. They got on.
Push the button for the top floor.
They got to the top and stepped off into the middle of a hallway with exits at each end. Directly in front of them was Jerry's office, walled off by glass from floor to ceiling. Looking in, and past the next glass wall on the other end, was the boss's balcony. Trev pushed in the magnetic touch latch on the glass door and pulled the door open. Jerry Landis sat in a porch chair on stone-carpeted and putting green astroturf at a patio table with an open umbrella through the center. His earbuds were settled in. He held court, chatting online with the rest of the business magnates and whomever else was allowed to log in. On his third beer of 6 in a tin tub of ice, with a cigar in hand, he was listening to what had to be the funniest story ever told.
This asshole.
Trev thought about the tens of millions, if not billions, this guy probably has when his employees could barely make it. His own company hired a guy to kill him. Trev walked up to Jerry at the table with the pin in his right hand, the box in his left. He put on his most professional voice.
Good afternoon, Mr. Landis.
Oh, hi. Sorry, let me take these out. Guys, one moment. Oh, hi, I'm Jerry. You new here?
Jerry put out his right hand. Trev grabbed it. Jerry squeezed Trev's palm to the bones, but didn't react to the ephedrine prick.
Just a temp for the day, sir. Here's your lunch.
Jerry took the box, looked inside, then went back to his meeting. Trev continued to listen to him talk.
No, it's just lunch. My accounting department decided to waste money on one full warm body just to walk it up to me.
Trev listened with nothing but contempt.
That's why you gotta keep an eye on everyone. Most people are too stupid with money.
Trev saw the 3 other beers icing in the tin pan.
They deserve what they get.
Trev picked up a bottle and smacked it across Jerry's head. He thought it would shatter, and then make a blade. Jerry pulled a gun out from under the table and pointed it at Trev. He looked at his laptop screen, knowing Trev was afraid to move.
Hey guys, watch this.
Trev stepped forward, leaned his forehead to the end of the barrel, and looked Jerry in the eyes.
Fucking do it.
Jerry hesitated, surprised. He looked back and screamed to everyone else. Trev took the moment to push the gun from his head. He used his forearm to buckle Jerry's elbow. Jerry's grip retracted. Trev grabbed the gun. He turned it in his hands and pointed it at Jerry.
Keep the screen up and the camera on so they can see this.
How do you shoot that thing? Let's see if you even know.
Jerry pulled out his phone and pushed a button to call.
Charlie, I know you're standing at the door of my office. Come out and teach the new guy how we do things around here.
Charlie walked out onto the balcony, hanging up the phone.
The cartel is coming for us because you're the one stealing from them. Your only option is to turn over access to the accounts. If everyone can get the money, the cartel won't have the funds to find any of us. After that, the side of this building is your most painless way out.
Then what? Y'all split the loot among yourselves like real criminals?
Jerry turned to Trev.
What did all of them even offer you? They can make up any amount of money they want if they're just gonna shoot you afterwards. 1,000, 10,000, $1 million.
Trev, your money is at the loading dock waiting for you.
He'd still be a witness. He could tell anyone anything at any time. Best to bump him off now, so he's not a liability, right?
Just get me out of here and I'm gone.
Open up the palm of the hand.
Trev took the hand out of the box. While still training the gun on Jerry, he unfolded the fingers of the hand and released the platinum card. Inside of the palm was the 4-digit PIN number.
Charlie can now send that information to everyone in the company to use. If you can trust her, you'll see her message within seconds. My scanner's right here.
Trev pressed each joint of the fingers into the glass and spread out the cold palm for the prince to read. After 2 tries of the scanner, they gained access. Charlie started entering in the information.
How long will this take?
Not long.
Trev watched Jerry while pulling out his phone to check. No new messages in his inbox. He kept refreshing it.
Still nothing? Charlie, you should know how to do this.
The phone beeped a notification. Then 2 more. Then even more.
What are those for?
It's the money going directly into her account. Do you see that email?
Trev's phone had still not beeped. He stepped over to the system and saw Charlie downloading the routing numbers for the cartel's accounts onto a Lion Lock flash drive. He grabbed Charlie's shoulder and pulled her away from the terminal. She felt a small prick in it.
Ow!
Trev pulled out the drive as Charlie slapped him out of the way, knocking the bone of her forearm against the side of his head. She then grabbed her shoulder.
What was that?
Trev put up the palm of his hand, showing Charlie the red poison pushpin held in the notch between his fingers.
Motherfucker!
She reached out for the drive, but Trev put it in his mouth and swallowed it.
I'm still going to get it.
Trev pointed the gun at her and pulled the trigger.
I keep the loaded one right here.
As he reached for it, Trev threw the empty gun right into Jerry's eye. As he ran over, Jerry shattered his bottle over Trev's head. Pushing Trev by the neck up against the glass balcony, he shanked him in his left side, holding on to the remaining shard. Trev held in the gash as Jerry's arm held his back even further over the rail, balancing him on his spine, his feet off the ground.
You're going to bleed all over my nice green turf.
Trev grabbed Jerry's red tie, wrapped it around his fist, punched him in the right side of his sinus. Jerry's body pulled Trev's weight back to not get pulled over with him. Trev kept Jerry's bottle away from him with a locked arm.
Area units, please respond to shots fired at the Lion Lock building.
Jerry stopped. Trev slammed Jerry's arm against the railing, shattering the bottleneck in his hand. Trev kept his stranglehold on Jerry, punching him in the side of his face. Then lifting him by the neck, he yanked him over the railing with Jerry's feet slipping off the tile.
Stop! Stop!
Trev stopped and held him over.
Why?
Jerry grabbed Trev's tie and pulled, unclipping it off his neck and falling back over. Trev pulled on the tie, leaning back, countering Jerry's weight. He braced himself with his leg against the rail. The tie fabric cut into his grip while the body writhed against the side, choking and kicking it. He held the man for almost 3 minutes until he stopped.
We have to get out of here.
You're shaking.
You drugged me. Give me your arm.
Trev tied the body to the railing with a half-hitch and left it dangling off the side of the building, overlooking the view he paid for. As the ephedrine filled her system, Charlie managed to water Trev out of the office into the service elevator as he held on to her. They rode it all the way down to the loading dock. Outside, they heard the sirens of more and more police surrounding the perimeter. The loading dock was clear of anyone except for the 2 delivery drivers waiting for it.
He's got the account number on a flash drive inside his stomach.
What is wrong with your eyes? You're shaking.
I'm fine.
Let's get this guy into Carr. Put him in trunk so he doesn't bleed on the seats.
Where am I gonna sit?
Don't take her with. She's high as fuck.
What?
He grabbed her chin to look in her eyes.
We don't work with junkies.
He shot Charlie in the chest.
Throw her in dumpster. I'll put him in trunk.
He put a hood over Trev's head, opened the back of the trunk, pushed him down inside.
Don't worry, buddy. We have plenty of work for you.
Trev held on to his side, keeping as much blood as he could in his body, as the car engine turned over, took him down the alley, and turned right, away from the building.
Hello, everybody. I am Philip Lewis, also known as Lip, and I am one of the Silent Theater Company ensemble members, newest members, actually. I am a writer, just finished a project that will be coming out soon that is a radio drama, and I'm excited to talk about this piece.
Let's go to Tonika, Todorova.
Hi, everyone. I am also from Silent Theater. I'm one of the original members. My experience with noir, we have done 2 noir plays in Silent Theater. The first one, Noir, A Shot and a Chaser, was in 2007. And then in 2013, we did Noir, City of Broad Shoulders. I've always been interested in all its reiterations throughout history, how it has changed and still has kept its essence. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Hi, I'm John Klingle. I'm an actor and film scholar.
I'm Sarah. I am a video maker, an artist, an art handler, and we're both big film buffs. I guess that's our relationship to noir.
When I personally think of noirs, I definitely think of highly stylized shooting camera angles, or with radio dramas, it's really about getting the atmosphere of this gritty crime world. You're definitely going to see a lot of people who are not necessarily 100% good or 100% evil. It's everyone lives in that moral gray area.
Yeah, the narrator always sticks out to me, the first person perspective. I also love the language. There's a lot of allegories, she entered my office like a 45 Magnum, that sort of thing. But it's usually very violent.
Yeah.
It's universally a pessimistic and often even bordering on nihilistic. Violent men and women and their actions is a lot of focus on the depths of human greed and ambition and the kind of cruelty that humans can do against each other. Gangster films of the decade preceding noirs, there was usually a clear force for good in the presence of the police heroes. But in the noir films of the 40s and 50s, there often was not an unambiguous side of goodness.
It's typically focuses on these stories that in their hearts are like pulpy and salacious, but a lot of times come out of this peeling back this veneer of banality. They usually start as these stories that are very sort of like inconspicuous, and as the tale goes on, it dips deeper into this like seedy and corrupt underworld.
Talk to me about what you thought of this noir as situated within, kind of today's contemporary genre or any social, cultural.
It was like very pointedly was about these characters that were trying to fight the CEO who was, they said like, oh, he's skimming off the top, but it seemed like their grievance was mostly that he was amassing this capital that was not being distributed to these workers. I think that points at culturally just like an increasing amount of sympathy towards that viewpoint, this sort of like anti-capitalist, like wealth hoarding mentality. And that jumped out at me right away.
Yeah, that speaks to the corruption for sure. It was employing the usual tropes. You had the greediness of the voice. Although I have to say, I noticed some cultural shifts. The female character specifically wasn't so damsel in distress like, which was refreshing to see. So this kind of reminded me of female characters can be badasses.
I definitely really enjoyed the twist of the narrative. I think typically when we hear these like 1940s up until like the 80s form of noir, the mysterious other, there was a lot of otherisms that were happening at that time. So I like the idea that discussion of the cartel specifically was something so ingrained with the bureaucracy of a job that this felt very like blue collar job mixed with like this seedy underbelly that actually created an interesting commentary. I felt like it was saying a lot more about like these things that we feel like criminalizes like foreign policies, foreign organizations is very rooted, ingrained into how we kind of function as a country as well. To me, that felt very interesting. And then also this idea that something so explicit, like the hand falling out of the box, felt so commonplace inside the office. People saw it and was just like, yeah, well, that happens one day. It's pretty wild to me.
The fact the employees, they're so like maybe demoralized. It's like, yeah, of course they would expect that to happen because of course we're working for this terribly corrupt organization. Of course.
One of the reasons that the noirs of the 40s and 50s to me have aged better and I can find more appeal in them, sort of the films of their era are extremely critical of Americanism. As the noir developed and as the Red Scare happened, that unfortunately was diluted and there ended up being more communist agents involved in noirs. But a lot of the real classic noirs like Double Indemnity and Maltese Falcon and things are about American greed and American desperation. I think to me that's one of the most enduring and appealing forms of it. The neo-noirs of the 70s delve into that even further.
Yeah.
Like Chinatown.
Absolutely. Chinatown, it's all about like municipal corruption and it is critical and it's grim and it's...
Exactly. And I think that's something that we can see here too, that use of the noir form to not try to blame our problems on outsiders, but to acknowledge that this corruption and evil is endemic within us.
One of the things that sort of stuck out to me is you guys are talking about American criminalism. The darkest criminals in this piece are transnational corporations. It's almost, there's no escaping from it anywhere.
Noir starts often on the very small levels.
Mm-hmm. We recently watched a movie, The Killers, which is a great noir, where it starts out like an insurance agent is trying to figure out, this claim and and it just, keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper.
And you can look at like petty criminality, petty theft, or adultery or what have you. But it often leads to higher level criminality.
Specific to this piece, and kind of like what you're talking about, Diane, is this idea of this story is focusing on an operation that isn't like a national operation. It's a global operation. And I think that is, you're right, that it's sort of all encompassing, it's omnipotent, and it's inescapable. But I think that one thing that's very interesting about it is that the whole organization that is being focused on in this story, the Lion Lock, they fully cop to the fact that it's a shell corporation for a cartel. But the grievance that is being lodged isn't that it's a shell corporation. It's that the funds and the profits are not being fairly distributed. And
which I think goes back to a lot of noir with the moral ambiguity on the path of the other characters, in that often they're not necessarily looking for right or wrong. They're looking for their piece of the pie.
Yeah.
If I were to kind of give one person a tale of noir, it's the fact that everybody's kind of getting their own cut of something. That one really big idea that they're going after that inevitably fails in some sort of way, or this idea that people are more idealistic than they are realistic. In that way, one of the things I do really find scary about this type of piece that does speak to the fears of the actual world is that it's very highly conceptualized in this kind of way that we see certain situations, like all the employees kind of rallying together to say, we want to keep this kind of scandal of what this company is doing for the sake of us kind of keeping our job, even if that means kind of literally shredding this person to bits. So that idea is something that we do think about a lot in the commonplace of just like working, especially now within the pandemic and everybody kind of talking about what does it mean to be an employee again.
Oh, yeah.
It's very scary that you want to believe that we kind of come together as a group of individuals, an ensemble, and it's about us moving together as a unit. Where does that limit go? And what happens when the nature of the company compromises your own kind of moral compass? It's subtle. Something like this, you look at it and you say, oh, this is completely over stylized. This would never happen in the real world. But when you think about like what happens in actual crime life versus like how people are willing to kind of like go to their deathbeds to keep kind of corporate secrets, it's not that out of the range of realm of thinking.
Yeah, I also find it quite topical that you have this one guy on a very micro level against this big corpa on a macro level. And I find that parallel to what's going on right now. If you want to file an insurance claim, for example, as an average Joe, you have a really hard time trying to fight the big wigs in the corporation.
What you just brought up there, Tonika, it leads to another trademark element of the noir that is present in this, which is of the small-time man who gets caught up in something larger than him. A real common trope, not just to the noirs of the classic period, but also to the thrillers that were influenced by those noirs. Hitchcock loved that. There are very famous noirs about insurance agents, for example, The Killers and Double Indemnity. Sarah was telling me about how Jake in Chinatown is just doing small-time PI.
He's a PI. He's a PI who like mostly busting people having affairs.
Exactly. These small-time PIs or what have you, ending up willingly or unwillingly fighting against something that they possibly can't really win against. In Chinatown, famously, it's a loss.
Forget it, Jake.
It's a loss.
It's Chinatown.
It's a lost cause from the beginning. Very common and really critical element of noir that we see present in this that also reflects the political themes as well.
So what popped in my mind just real quick, you guys, of course, I'm going to go to the psychological because I always do. This sort of confluence between criminality and agency. When you're living in a world where it's very hard to execute agency in a free way, truly, sometimes criminality is really the only other choice. And I'm wondering if this isn't a reflection of a frustration of the will's ability to act truly freely in the world.
Yeah, a person's got to be free to this constant fight these days about, for example, stealing. It's such a common thing, thieving. People who steal need things. It's very rare that you're going to steal because you're the desire to live on the edge or something. So I think maybe that's how it connects to me. I too will steal if my kids are hungry enough. Yeah, sure. You can call me a criminal about it.
I did a lot of reading recently. One of my favorite philosophers, as well as one of my favorite stories, is Rollo May. I was reading this book, The Courage to Create, at the same time that I was kind of revisiting a lot of Martin McDonough's kind of work, who to me I feel like is not necessarily quintessential noir, but I think he definitely plays with the form. it talks about this idea of like, what is the difference between a saint, an artist, and a thief? Because they all kind of mold and shape society as we see it. And then looking at how Roland May kind of sees it, that there is the only thing that really changes anyone's kind of perspective or moral compass is just circumstance. So for some people, you can easily become a rabbi, you can easily become a drug cartel leader, you could become just somebody who ends up writing a play about it. And there's always that question of, was that a part of the collective consciousness? Is it something that I was like always destined to do? Or is this something that if I not picked up that nickel on the street that one time, I would have had a completely different life?
When I think about crime and criminality, I think that that concept in and of itself can be really complicated. Crime kind of falls into these two different categories where it's like an ethical, moral perspective, and then what is like legally or societally designated as crime. And in that sense, crime falls within these very specific parameters, but is often deliberately orchestrated. Things are made criminal in order to continue benefiting the systems that
are already
in place to like fight crime. And it's something we see a lot that very much obviously impacts marginalized communities, specifically communities of color. And I think that when we talk about criminality, I think it's like important to sort of think about like what that means from like a manufactured perspective. Like, what is crime?
Yeah, just to add on to what Sarah is saying too, this reminds me of germ theory and terrain theory a little bit, because we live in a very punitive society, right? You put the criminal in jail and that's where they belong. But nobody wants to address the fact that it is systemic, that it is more likely for people who are poor to go out and commit crimes because they are in need. And if we fixed our society in such a way that we didn't have people who needed basic needs, then we'll have a lot less crime. And so it goes.
And also veering into what is considered legalized crime from a sociological classist perspective. People with more resources, the laws and the systems are in place to further solidify their status and to perpetuate it. The idea of crime as a concept being an inversion, bad if you do it, but okay if we do it.
There's something really beautiful about that conversation being tied into this particular radio drama, because one of the things that I noticed when listening to this, I genuinely, usually when I listen to all the radio dramas, I'm thinking of people in mind for each of these roles. But when you really kind of break it down, there is no concept of who this main character is. We have no concept of who Charlie is. So a lot of their roles and a lot of their backgrounds, it's just something that we suppose. And so it always makes me wonder, people are listening to this, how many people see the CEO being someone, a person of color, or seeing this main character be somebody of color? How do we know how we identify Charlie in the story? Having those headcanons ends up creating a very useful and pretty interesting conversation of how we see this dichotomy in the bureaucracy of the story. What mental politics do we place onto a piece where there is no literal race to it? I know Tonika and I were talking about the beauty of radio dramas being something that is both opening and freeing, but also it spots a light on what actually happens to the story and how we place race into that concept of it as well. Usually you have a sense of noir's relationships are unbounding. Everything is on very thin ice. There's uneasy beginnings, uneasy middles, and very, very tragic endings. It kept to a lot of the form there, but it played with it in a way that your mind is subjecting that the femme fatale archetype is going to show up for Charlie. And then throughout, you kind of are like, where do I put my loyalties in this? To find out that that is still somehow subverted by the end, knowing that this is actually somebody who, even though their moral compass is not due north, there is still a want to change the system. This person is truly who they say they are at the very beginning. And I think what's interesting about that is that most radio dramas, or at least noirs at this point, you're kind of expecting that that person is going to be two-timing at the end. They say that this is their goal the whole way through, and at the very last minute, kind of pull the rug underneath you. It is surprising that sometimes people can be exactly who they say they are.
Trevor was an interesting character. I noted earlier, I got the sense that there was someone who has a situation of great moral quandary foist upon them. This somewhat complicated that by having Trevor's background being as an international hacker, which is, although there are noir protagonists with shady pasts, obviously.
I mean, I guess that like what I took away from that is that he seems to be sort of compulsively in over his head, whether it is deliberate or incidental.
And his bladder.
And I said, yeah, John was like, oh, he pissed himself. You know, he really shit the bed and pissed himself in that whole operation. I think that he maybe has a grander idea of himself than he is actually, you know, has the potential to live up to, at least in the beginning. And then he does sort of bring it with his eventual confrontation with Jerry Landis. And I think that that is indicated by just his own like physical shortcomings, being sort of weirdly granted the second chance.
Yeah.
But then freaking out when he finds the hand in the box, which, to be fair, I would too. The hand itself was really interesting to me because it represented like this whole story is about these like huge doings, this international corporation, this powerful cartel that's worth billions of dollars, these powerful people. And then there are these moments like with the hand and then also with the pants pissing, it really grounds it back in this sense of very physical human existence.
Yes.
You might have billions of dollars and access to all this money, but you are only as good your physical body as your flesh and blood and bone hand in a takeout container. You're only good as a hacker if you can like overcome your heroin addiction and not piss on yourself.
Yes.
You're only as good as the body that these like ravenous office workers want to shove in the paper shredder.
Yeah, I thought it was a real nice touch to have the Apple Watch on the severed hand. I thought it was such a great representation of being rich. And again, going back to what Sarah was saying, being only as good as your physical body. I found Trevor a little unusual in the sense that you got 10 seconds, you have to go kill the CEO. Even if with somebody with moral ambiguity, if we didn't have any kind of background on this character, I'd be like, Trevor, don't do it. It doesn't matter how much money they're going to give you.
They're also definitely not. They're like, he's worth billions of dollars. We will give you 200,000. It's like, you can probably negotiate a little bit. Like, I know you work for a temp agency, but like, you know, you're about to go.
It's his first day.
Yeah.
It's his first day.
I know he can't negotiate the raise yet. Yeah. Probationary period is over.
As a long-time temp, you don't want to.
So yeah, what really struck me about his character, and it's interesting in the casting of it, is that he seems like this almost hapless, innocent guy in a way, but because he's a nerd, or he's like this nerdy guy, he's actually not. He's just very intelligent in just how he applies that. But it's just like street smarts. I don't know. It's like, it's almost like, how did they groom him? How did they pick this guy? What traits were they looking for?
He was so hapless on the phone. Like, he was like, oh, I'm sorry to the couple, to the Ukrainian couple. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. I kept saying, I'm sorry. And then, oh, I'm going to go kill the CEO now.
There were moments in this that certainly had strong comic elements that suddenly popped out, particularly with regards to Trevor's nebbishness at times. And just sort of ineffectuality.
My favorite line was when they were like, get the paper shredder, it could shred a bowling ball. It was like, that's some good noir. Good noir line.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say for the language as well, one of the things that actually, it took something that normally, had the narrator not had the like jargon and verbiage to narrate the entire story the way it was, I would have probably labeled it action like story. But at the same time, the fact that there is a lot of metaphorical languages that is alluding to specific things that are within the realm of noir. On top of that, definitely speaking to Trevor, I feel like I don't know if the language got a little bit too ahead of me. There was a moment where I was wondering like how scrawny or how like slender and meek is this person, because I think that if I'm not mistaken, you all can tell me if I misread it, there was Trevor like holding the CEO up by his neck over the balcony
with his time.
And so I was like, in that sense, I was thinking, I was like, all right, so this is the moment we're going to find out that Trevor is like secretly an assassin agent that was just kind of putting on a ploy the whole time. But then by the end, I was just like, okay, so maybe he's just like really meek and the drugs hit real hard in that moment.
That the adrenaline rush.
Yeah, I felt like in that moment I was wondering if this was going to be another kind of unmasking.
Maybe Jerry Landis was a tiny man. He was like a troll doll.
Exactly.
Very tiny person.
The man behind the curtain, yeah.
I think that's the beauty of radio drama, is that in that situation, your mind kind of plays tricks on it. And especially when you have this headcanon being like, this is who I'm expecting, and they do something that level. Same thing with Charlie. I felt like the way that the story was being told, it felt very much like almost like a creepy Stepford CEO mom that was working. And then by the end, you're just like, oh, this is definitely somebody who would carelessly pull out a gun and shoot somebody in the face.
What'd you guys think of the ending?
I was honestly a little confused. I was not totally sure what was happening.
There's a number of allegiance changes that happened in a very quick span of time.
Yeah.
That I got a little lost on. It seemed like characters were switching back and forth between who they were working with, and at a pretty rapid pace that I got fairly confused at. Which is, again, I mean, that sort of backstabbing and sudden twists in denouements are classic elements of the noir. This one, very rapid stuff.
Well, I feel like they were also introducing a lot of characters within the last like 5 probably minutes of the show.
Yeah.
And so you get the sense that you're like, I know there's going to be more emotional changes between now and the end. But I think what ended up happening, which I think speaks to what, I don't want to speak for the entirety of the viewership of entertainment, but I feel like at this point, people are now anticipating the sense of like that twist at the end. Somebody, we're going to have that red wedding. We're going to have that moment where we're like not anticipating that that thing that we don't want to happen is going to end up happening. But in this one, I think because there was so much knowledge that anticipation is kind of a standard in viewership now, there were some moments where I felt like some boxes were being checked, but at the other time I felt like it was like, I really want to fight against that and still kind of keep true to form to a story. But I think in that way, it didn't really commit to one or the other.
I think that I kind of filled in the blanks in between. I could even provide maybe several even reasons why that might have happened for myself.
It definitely sets itself up that it wants to be more than just this one episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so they throw him in the trunk. They're obviously keeping him alive for some reason, but what are they going to do with him afterwards?
I guess use him as their assassin slave
or his hacker.
I'm not joking. That's what I took that to mean.
I mean, there was sort of the suggestion that, they had more work for him, that, maybe he passed their recruitment test.
Yeah. He swallowed important information. I thought that's why
true.
They were
because it's noted that it's in the USBs in the stomach.
He has to go number twos.
He can deliver the severed hands from now on. That's his job.
It sort of pushed the boundaries for noir for me, because I think that some of the tropes concerning, your lead character, as you're wondering about his competence, especially in the world of technology, competence is not necessarily based on, brawn or the things it was in the past noirs. This is more, what do you know and how can you apply it to get into a server or whatever, and how that's become a more valuable skill is interesting, and how technology is sort of used and utilized to facilitate the crime or the communication about it, or the hiding of it, or the funneling of funds or whatever.
I've always said this about noirs. The only thing that is stopping Maltese Falcon from being the story that's told today is an iPhone. And I feel like there's a lot of elements of technology in this that opens a lot of discussions for what noir is now. One of the things that was already on the tip of my head the whole time that I was just like, this is a very scary implication, is that the firm itself had a geotagging police force that as soon as a crime happened, it was automated around the space. And to me, I'm just like, it gave me a little level of like Minority Report discussion of like, as soon as a crime happens, are there people swarming into the space, so you have zero time to kind of have that thought? It did add a lot of stakes into the story, but at the same time, crime, we're also talking about the idea of a severed hand with an iPhone on it. We're talking about people who have cell phone conversations now. Everything can happen through text. It really opens a lot of doors of what type of crime you can tell now.
Bringing it so much into the real world, I want to go back to something that John and Sarah were talking about earlier, about Americanism, and specifically pointing out the truth in our society and doing it in a way where it's like, this is a given, this is happening. It's not a question of whether or not it's happening. This is happening, and we're basing our story in that world because we know it's happening. And I find that incredibly valuable in this particular piece to point that
timely
out.
Yeah, it's timely. And of course the question I always opened with the last panel discussion was why noir, why now?
Well, the internal monologue is kind of very interesting that's happening throughout the entire thing. The narration to me always brings it back to the things that are happening on stage or on a podcast. You understand at a face value, but really the narration is there to tell you what's really happening. And I think that that's, especially in a very polarized commentative world of journalism and media, it's important to not only show what we're seeing at face value, but also really important to see what's happening behind the scenes.
Right.
I feel like for radio drama specifically, the words, radio drama and radio theater goes into the verbiage of what you're telling, and every word counts, because if you describe something, especially what the narrator does, because I'm always going to be interested in who the narrator is and how they decide to make this voice, how to make these choice of languages, how to use the visualization. There are characters in the world who have very, very little eloquence when it comes to speaking, but to have the choice to give that person the confidence and the daringness to say the words that we're going to hear in the story, and that is valuable. It's something that I think that today we do have a lot of things happen in the world where what people say is going to have heavy consequence. There's a lot of people who are really leaning on who you are and what you stand for, and I think that for radio theater, it really pushes that narrative of saying, this is how you can commit to your words.
In noir, it's often about these characters gazing into the darkness of the universe that exists beside and beneath their own, and the coexistence of, and the capacity for normalcy and darkness and grimness to exist at once and to sort of penetrate each other. And I think we're living in a time that it is becoming increasingly important, and not that it hasn't always been important, but I think people are becoming increasingly conscious of how important it is to be cognizant of the darker, more upsetting things that are existing even as we go through our lives. In that way, I think it feels very, very pertinent and immediate.
I want to thank my guests for joining in, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to the play, because it's quite a ride. Let's let Philip have the last say. Tell us a little bit about, you are writing a play. That'll probably be our next one, yes?
Yes, I am in the process of writing a short little story. It's a play on form, but it is called Perhaps by Chance. Should be coming up pretty soon. You guys should be able to hear it. But if you guys like Clue, kind of tabletop games, decided to make something audible for a very visual media.
Nice. You have just heard the voices of our deconstructing panel: Lip Lewis, Tonika Todorova, John Klingle, and Sarah Stevens. Radio Theater Deep Dive is produced by Diane Ham and Jeannie Cuff. The Temp That Killed CEO Jerry Landis was written by Keith Gatchel, with editing and sound design by Diane Ham. It starred Elijah Warfield as Trev, Jessica Kearney as Charlie, Paul Carr as Jerry Landis, featuring Robert Puig and Chloe Speshock, with narration by John Rohr. Music composed by the Star System. Next month, our feature radio play will be Perhaps by Chance by Lip Lewis. We want to thank all our creators and listeners for diving with us into the noir genre. We hoped you enjoyed the play or found the discussion inspiring. Check out our website, labyrinthartsperformance.com. That's LABYRINTHARTSPERFORMANCE.com.